Holla, I'm Trump, and you're listening to Concede.
Greetings.
Hello.
My greetings.
Well met.
I greet you.
Greetings, traveler.
Greetings, friend.
The pleasure is mine.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 117 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. My name is Kenny, and I go by KCCO Gamer. Joining us from Gadgetzan, New York, we have Ridiculous Hat.
Hello.
Hello. And from Karazhan, California, we have Bodicus.
Hey, everybody, excited for the show today.
And this week we have an additional guest. We have Asmodai. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
It's my pleasure to be here with you, and I can't wait to jump into the different topics.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a quick outline here. So we're going to go do an interview with Asmodai to begin with, and then we'll kind of go into our normal show since he has a stream to get to. We want to be respectful of his time. At this point, I do want to mention, Coin Concede is supported in a large part by you. If you'd like to find out how you can support us and receive rewards in return, just head over to our Patreon, which is under our name, Coin Concede. Let's get to the interview because we want to talk with Asmodai. I'm going to kick it over to, I don't know if you have an intro bumper here, Hat, but I'm going to kick it over to Bonicus first.
No intro bumper here, just real excited to have Asmo on the show, and I know Bot is too, so let's get to it.
Yeah, so we know that you are a very popular Twitch streamer, but for kind of our listeners who may not be familiar with you, why don't you kind of introduce yourself and let everybody know kind of how you got started with Hearthstone?
Okay. My handle is Asmodai, aka Cosplay Grill, which is my battle tag. I was playing MOBA very competitively, and it just died. And I decided the next game I want to get into, I want to play something that requires no mechanics at all, just something I can use my head or my mind to win games. And lucky for me, Hearthstone had just arrived. I think I was watching Crip or Hafu playing, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try this out. And I started playing it, and as everyone else, you think you're really, really good, right? I'm winning these games, I'm really good. So I was like, I'm going to show off, I want to start streaming. And the second I started streaming, I figured out I'm not really that good. And throughout there, I just been working on my game. I figured out I enjoyed streaming a lot, and it's been like a process where I've been polishing my stream, but I've also been polishing my Hearthstone skills along the way.
Yeah, I mean, for somebody who says they used to not be so good, it seems like you've come quite a bit of the way. You know, I catch your stream on a pretty regular basis, but it seems like you don't necessarily play like the deck that is necessarily like the number one deck. I know before the Jade Druid nerf, you like pretty much never played Jade Druid, but like where do you get your ideas? Where do you get your decks from? Like why do you choose to play the decks you decide to play?
I just at one point I made it a point to not play the absolute number one deck. I'm not sure where that idea came from. I think it was because it pissed me off, especially like when Jade Druid first came out, when Spreading Plague wasn't nerfed and they still had their innervates for 2 mana. That deck was just so broken, and I felt that my hard-earned effort in Hearthstone, like now anyone could be as good as me. They could or at least almost as good as me, just fire up that deck, right? And it pissed me off. So I was like, okay, I'm never going to play this deck. And now I've also taken the same stance on Rasa Priest, I'm just never gonna play it. So
Okay.
I think it stems from just being a little bit upset with the decks, and that's like my rebellion against it. But it's also when you play the bulk of games that I play, because I play 7 hours literally every single day. You need to find something a little bit different, you know? You need to add a little bit spice to keep it interesting.
Well, it definitely seems to be working with you. How many months in a row have you you hit number 1 now?
I
I know
think I think I hit rank 1 legend 7 months in a row now.
Jeez.
But
Good
then
lord.
I started the year by not hitting it once, so it was like 5 months nothing, and then we've just hit it every single month since.
Wow. So what do you think it is that that has been getting you there? Like, do you think it's just the meta's kind of lining up with the decks you like to play, or just the fact that, I mean, you literally stream every single day?
Well, I think I'm in a much better place now than I was back then. Like, just to go into a personal side, I moved around April, and where I was living before, I had a lot of issues with a dude that lived next to me. So just moving, I feel so much better where I'm at now, and it actually like impacts your whole mindset if you're in a good place instead of a bad place.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
It's
that's
good to
really
hear
interesting.
you're in a good place.
How much do you think the Hearthstone performance is related to? Well, there's so many factors, right? There's time and practice. There's your physical environment, which I guess I hadn't even considered as a major factor, and then there's RNGesus himself. There's a lot of memes around Hearthstone being, an RNG based game, or I draw Kaliseth, I win. What's your take on it? Do you think it's more related to practice? Do you think it's about reading the meta? What do you think is the most important to be successful like you have been?
I definitely think there is a combination of everything. Like, I can mainly talk about ladder experiences because I don't compete. I have, but I don't anymore. But it's definitely all of the above helps. Like, you need a sheer bulk of games. You need the understanding of when you queue up your deck, you can immediately identify what the other person is playing, what archetype, what cards he has, to be able to play your deck optimal. And to do that, you have to have spent a lot of time to have this, innate identification skill set, right? It's funny because I've been getting, actually I haven't gotten rank 1 with the Dragon Combo Priest yet, but I've been like consistently very, very high ranked with it this month. And I just woke up, I swear to God, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, Dragon Combo Priest should be really, really good right now. And then I was like, I felt like I had this genius idea, and I go on Twitter and I was like, I see a dude who's like posted, got rank 1 with Dragon Combo Priest. I'm like, no, that was gonna be me. But then I started firing it up, and it's really, really good right now. And it's a very interesting deck because there's so few people who actually play the deck, because I think you can get punished. There's also like a lot of reading turns ahead of time. So yeah, it's a really fun deck. When it comes to RNG, like, you have to embrace that you're not going to get high. Well, you can get high legend, but you're not going to get like rank 1 unless there is some good luck involved. Like, you're gonna have to hit some favorable matchups, you're gonna have to win some unfavorable matchups, and so forth. But like, by playing the deck to the best of your ability, you are putting yourself in the position to have that good luck. And that's the thing that people don't really identify most of the time, right? You have to play your turns optimal to actually put yourself in the position to have the good luck you need to win the games.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and we're not talking about a meta where we're dealing with Yogg-Saron, right? It's, Spiteful Summoner can be triggering, but it's not the same as 10 mana, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean,
Yeah, like even like the worst issue in the meta right now seems to be um people are complaining about Corridor Creeper, and personally, I don't really even hate that card. Like I feel like you can read, you can see it coming, you can feel it coming, you can maybe like make plays to adjust to deal with it. So if Corridor Creeper is the worst, my opinion isn't that Corridor Creeper is the worst, but if that's the worst problem we have right now, that's not too bad.
That makes
Uh,
sense.
I'm going to jump in here. I think I'm going to ask a question for our listeners because obviously you're on here because of who you are, but our listeners are wanting to pick something from you. So you did mention that you've reached rank 1 several times. So I imagine at one point you didn't reach it, and there were points where well, my question leads to you ever getting nervous about reaching that high point of play or high legend, or are there any people you played against that have made you nervous, or do you have any suggestions for our listeners that can keep them calm or focused for pushing for their personal best, whether it's rank 1 or whatever?
Yeah, I understand the question. Like, because I play so much, I really don't get that I get a little bit nervous when I'm going from like 2 to 1. I also get like more excited as everyone else if I'm playing against someone known in the community. Like I think it's more fun. But my best advice is you just have to play, win or lose. You're making yourself more equipped to do better just by playing the game, just by getting the experience. And another thing which I think is people underestimate is I remember when I had gotten 0 rank once, I was like, it was some unobtainable crazy rank far away, right? And I was looking and I was getting closer. I was like rank 5. I was like, oof. Oh, I really want this rank 1, but it seems so impossible. You hit rank 5 and you don't even rank up. You're still rank 5, and you're like, what the hell is this? But then I don't know, something happens and you manage to get through and you hit rank 1, and I swear there's like a barrier in your head that realizes that this is attainable. I think it's the same thing with legend. Like you don't hit legend, but then you hit it, and then you realize this is actually attainable. It's possible to do this, right? And then it becomes a lot easier to do it again because you like have the motivation. You know that you can actually do this. So I think that for me at least, just mentally knowing that this is possible gives you a lot more.
I think that's really well said, and a lot of people will take a lot from that. That's hearing that from you too. So thank you.
Yeah, it definitely feels like once it kind of happens once, the next time it happens, it feels a lot easier.
Yeah, and you can like do baby steps as well. Like if you're, this season hit rank 5, next season hit rank 1 non-legend, and hit legend, try to get top 500 legend, and you're consistently breaking these barriers, which is enabling you to think, okay, I can do this. It might actually make it easier to when you lose as well, because I've been there before. I can get back there. I just have to keep my head up and keep on playing focused.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I was kind of switching gears just slightly, just kind of an off question here. I know you were talking briefly about, I think somebody in your chat had asked you what was the highest you'd ever finished in a season, and you said you don't really care about what the finish is, you just play until it rolls over and then you just keep playing. But do you think that if you had enough like high ladder legend finishes to like qualify for HCT, do you think you would actually like play in the tournament, or would you just not want to take a day off streaming to play in that tournament?
I would not play in the tournament. I played in the tournament way back, and I got pretty deep. and then the season after, I also qualified, but I didn't play in the tournament. I stayed home. And then I was gonna qualify again because it was some kind of personal achievement just to do it, just to, I can qualify. But it was something that pissed me off. I don't really want to get into it. So I just said to myself, okay, I'm done with this. I'm gonna focus completely on streaming and try to be the best streamer I can be. And that's been my focus the last. How long has Hearthstone been out? I never remember. Is it like 3.5 years?
The beta was what, 2014 was the beta, or was it late 2013? I think 14.
3.5 sounds right to me, but I took a long break, so I'm not exactly positive.
It's a plausible number. Let's go with that. 3.5 years. We've
Sounds
decided.
good.
Yeah. So that was I also have this is my main job, right, to be a streamer. And back then, it's just I really feel like going for the competitive angle of it all to like win tournaments and stuff seemed very, like, I wouldn't, as a rational man, I wouldn't want that as my job. Now, however, with the new implications they made this year, it's a big step up for competitors, because you like have these marks you can hit, and you know that if you hit them, you're going to be compensated.
Okay. So maybe if there was like one more step, like upping the prize pool, or if it was like more attainable where you wouldn't have to sacrifice your stream, maybe that could sway you, but maybe currently not so much.
Unswayable. Like currently now, the only thing that would make me compete would be like looking at it as a vacation, going to Seed Story, hanging out there, going to DreamHack, and just mainly just playing for fun and meeting people. That would be like my main motivation. I think it's a drive that has disappeared in myself. In the beginning, when you're not known, I at least had a drive where I was like, I have to prove myself. I have to prove myself for these people that I am this good, And the more, I played it, I just didn't feel the need to prove myself, and the drive to compete and maybe do well disappeared.
That makes a lot of sense.
Man, I want to live in the lifestyle where like high-level tournament play is a vacation. That's definitely different. But
I'd love to see you at Seed Story Cup. That would be a great tournament to have you at. Get to see you do some casting too. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was there like 3 years ago. I actually did the competing things in the beginning. I was at a DreamHack. I was at a Seed Story. I remember I beat Lothar. He was smorking me. It was, didn't smork good enough.
And that was back in the day where like you were either Firebat and made money off Hearthstone, or you weren't Firebat and you didn't, right? There was like one payout for the entire year.
Yeah, it was the good old years. Like even the streamers didn't take advantage of getting their share of the money. It was like just the Wild West, it was something new. No one had established themselves really and knew what they were doing. If you could go back to time to that age, ooh.
Well, but then you'd be the next Ray.
You could take advantage of that.
So I guess in your case, instead of tournament play, it's all about high-level Legend Ladder play. There's been a lot of talk over the past year or two about the Legend Ladder system. I know they made those MMR improvements last year so that you didn't drop, 100 points in a game, but rope queuing still exists, and there's a lot of peculiarities about high-level Legend Ladder playing. Would you change anything? What do you think is ripe for opportunity for adjustment?
Oh, I would change so much, but then again, I realized that I would also be biased because I'm streaming and all my changes would be, to suit my streaming desires. However, one thing that I do think would actually benefit almost everyone is the fact that you can't queue into the same person twice. The beneficial thing with that, I think, is that like if the same person keeps on beating you over and over, it's a means for frustration, right? B, it completely takes away the element of counter queuing. I don't know if people like counter queuing. I personally think that it's a very very frustrating thing when people just lose to you and then they fire up a 99% win rate matchup. It's like, yeah, this isn't the best. And I also think that it wouldn't really make the queue time, because that's what you have to. That's like the downside, right? The queue time might be a little bit longer. Like maybe you have to wait 5 extra seconds or 10 extra seconds, depending on where you're at in the ladder. So I think that would be a huge improvement to the ladder system that I would really like to see them make.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, right? Because since you're such high legend ladder, you deal with the counter queuing and the repeat opponents significantly more than people playing between ranks 1 and 5 or even lower legend. So it's definitely a weird subject, because I can definitely see your point, while at the same time, you can't necessarily, unless you're playing at that super high legend ladder, you can't necessarily guarantee that if you counter queue somebody that you're going to get that same person.
That's true. But the thing is, though, does it really hurt the casual player? It helps the higher level player, but it doesn't really hurt the casual player, right?
Yeah.
Unless you enjoy like facing the same person over and over and like, haha, I got him that time. But you could always face him in 15 minutes again, right? So I don't feel like it takes away from the game, and I also think it's a pretty easy implementation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, let me jump in here with the new set here. So you've been playing the new set, the Kobolds and Catacombs, and do you think the format's changed much? Do you think it'll keep changing up until the rotation? How do you feel about this set?
I feel like the set supplements a lot of the classes. We got Control Lock or Cube Lock, which is an interesting deck. I personally would wish that a little bit more change happened, like it shook up the meta a little bit more, but it just seems like the different classes have been supplemented with a little bit more tools. It was pretty much what I was expecting, because we're not really going to see any huge change before the rotation happens in, is it 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, it should be March or April.
That's when everything is gonna go crazy. But I think it was I think we got enough to keep ourselves entertained. Like you can do well with aggro pally now. You can even do well with the control mage. So a little bit more spice and flavor. We're not really gonna see how one-sided the meta is for high-ranked players until next season, because that's when it becomes competitive, and that's when towards the end people are just gonna spam what they believe is the best deck or the counter to the best deck, is usually how it goes, right? So now we're in the stage where everyone is like throwing a Oompa Loompa around and doing their thing. I think we've kind of landed on Rasa Priest being the best. I personally think that the combo Dragonlock Priest is also the best, like comparably to Rasa Priest. I also think Q Block is up there. Aggro Pally is up there. And I think the new Jade Druid list that Mr. Yagut made is probably also going to be up there of the absolute best decks.
Okay. So you think that the your combo Dragon Priest deck kind of has the best matchup against the majority of those decks? Do you think that's is that like your suggestion?
Yes, I do. I think that I think you're like even or slightly favored to Rasa Priest. I think you're super favored to any kind of druid. However, like Mr. Yagi did the genius thing of putting 2 spellbreakers in it, which really hurts you. But once you know they're in the deck, it becomes easier to plan your turns around it. Like you don't commit fully unless you know you can kill them, etc. And Q Block is also pretty even matchup. So like I consider them skill matchups where you actually have a lot of room to outplay your opponent and the decision making matters, but they're very even.
Okay.
What would be your favorite cards of this past year? I'll say, not just this set, but the past year.
Oof.
Or decks.
Favorite card. Man, this is my kryptonite question. My head goes blank. I don't even remember.
But you can expand it to a deck if you like a certain deck.
Like your old Miracle Rogue deck that you played quite a bit of. That was a lot of fun.
Well, like my favorite card, or one of my favorite cards, is a card which is pretty trash, and it's the Valera Rogue DK.
Oh man, that's my favorite card too.
I love that card. I feel like it has so much potential, but it doesn't do the trick. I've actually thought about this so much, and I think the most beautiful change Blizzard ever could have made, like if it just was like this, the second they released it, was Priest DK, 9 mana, Rogue DK, 8 mana.
Ooh.
It would be beautiful. It would actually make all the difference.
Rogue mana.
Yeah.
Rogue at 8 mana. Oh my god. I'm just thinking about it now. I'm mad. Now I'm so mad.
I'm just thinking about actually being able to play a Bone Mare and not have to worry about Priest DK coming down the next turn and just ruining everything.
But that's like thinking about the new cards. I'm actually pretty happy about the way Blizzard has been pushing out these sets, because I don't think that except the Rasakus DK, that's like the one toxic card combination, which is just ooh. But like if Bone Mare and the Creeper dude is the worst cards they're printing, I'm pretty okay with that. Like I dealt with that 1 mana weapon that got buffed by lightning totems, Tuskar Totemic that rolled the 3/4. Like oof, those things would win the game. Like turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. It's just I'm happy. I think we're in a good place. We're going towards a good place.
Yeah.
The journey is gonna end at a good place.
Well, like if we dealt with Small Time Buccaneer, Spirit Claws, and now like if the biggest problem people have is Bone Mare and Cobalt Scalebane, both of which
the what is it called? The Corridor Creeper. Creeper.
Or Creeper, yeah. Well, Creeper is now what people are complaining about, but you think about it, 3 months ago they were complaining about Bone Mare and Cobalt Scalebane. 3 months before that they were complaining about Primordial Glyph and Arcanologist. You're right that the power level of what people are complaining about is it's not the same card for 6 or 9 months like it used to be. It's not Grim Patron anymore. Yeah.
Oh my god! I think that the Spirit Claw and the Tuskar Totemic is gone, and it just puts a smile on my face.
Yeah. But do you miss Fiery War Axe?
Yeah, I think Fiery War Axe actually was okay at 2 mana.
It's been interesting to see how bad Warrior has been without it, but it was in every Warrior deck, and it was really powerful turn 2 play. I know, it's kind of interesting. Curious to
The
see where that goes.
the theory that went behind it was that it's such good early removal, and Blizzard is going to print Warrior as a control class. So if they have the Fiery War Axe and they have amazing, control capabilities, the class is too well rounded. Like they have to have some kind of weakness, right? But now they just get out controlled. So right now it's in a very awkward place.
Yeah, I mean, you think about Shaman and Warrior both kind of being overcorrected for a weird period of dominance, and Shaman was like really bad and then really overpowered, and now it's really bad again. Warrior has always been
Yeah,
kind of playable, and then now just isn't.
everyone thinks the Hex nerf is kind of weird.
Yeah,
Yeah, what did Hex ever do?
it was good against overpowered stuff, but beyond that, I'm not sure. I guess it was too efficient.
Whenever I don't understand things, I try to look at it in a bigger picture. Like, what is coming up? Like, is it going to be super impactful in the next meta? And as we're seeing in this meta, something that is super impactful is silence, right? And you could kind of compare those effects, Hex with silence. It would be really good against, well, it is really good against the Void Lords and stuff like that. It's just the class doesn't really have the cards to support their great removal.
Yeah, it makes sense. And Blizzard has constantly taken kind of an anti-silence, super hard removal stance over the years, right? They nerfed Ironbeak Owl quite some time ago.
The other day, I saw a deck that had 2 Spellbreakers and an Ironbeak Owl, and I flipped some tables. I was like, whoa, what the hell, man? I thought I was safe.
Yeah. Was that a counter
Got me
cue,
with
or
the
just
owls.
they did that on purpose?
Yeah, I got to win a game by shadow stepping a Spellbreaker the other day.
Oh, God.
They like played the Warlock DK, got it back 2 Void Lords, and I had already silenced one, so I got to play a Spellbreaker, silence one, and then shadow step it to get the other one to kill him. So yeah, silence is real good right now against that deck specifically, at least.
Well, to transition a little bit here, Asmo, you're talking about this environment, and you're a pretty positive guy, so I want to talk about your stream environment because it's a pretty positive place, right? Every time I hang out there, negativity goes away, and it's really just, despite having an audience, yesterday I was watching, there was, 6,000 people there. It's a happy place, and there's some other Twitch chats out there that are less happy. So, how have you made it so low toxicity? How have you done what you've done there and made this kind of micro community where it's so welcoming?
Well, it all stems in me. That might sound very weird at first, but I'm a really sensitive dude, which doesn't really go hand in hand with Twitch, right? I get, if say one of you guys said, "Yo, Osmo, what you're talking about now doesn't make sense. You're an idiot." I would like get overly offended, and I would feel bad, and I'd be like, "Fuck this," and I'll probably make a tweet about Concede piece of shit show, But the same goes for Twitch. Like it's became a culture in Twitch where people go on there and instead of contributing or being a part of the discussion or the hype, it's like we're gonna make fun of the broadcaster, we're gonna fucking say that racist shit or whatever. And this is my full-time job. If I'm gonna be able to do this every single day, I don't want to get up, go to work, and deal with negativity and shit in my face every single day. I couldn't do it. Like I don't have the personality to deal with it. So what I do is I just ban them. Just straight up ban everyone who is obnoxious, and try to set a good example myself, even though I fail sometimes. Sometimes I get salty and fucking sorry about that. I don't know if I'm supposed to swear, but I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Just be yourself. It's okay.
I start bitching and whining, but I try my best. I'm very aware of how I act on stream and try to go forth with a good attitude, set the pace of the stream. Like there's a lot of people who just outright ignore it, right? Because it's the mindset is there's a lot of young people that like to troll, and it's a large part of a viewership, the people who do troll, and I don't know if they want to say that you're bald or you look fat or some racist stuff, just to be that kind of person. But I just very early decided that that's not what my stream is going to be about.
Good for you. Now, speaking along these terms, do you think there needs to be some kind of change to Twitch chat in general, or do you think, or this is just more independent per streamer?
In a perfect world, there, like I would like to see that it gets moderated more. However, I think it's very hard to find that line where this is completely unacceptable. I also think that as a company, Twitch, it would probably require a lot of resources to monitor all that shit. And also, like, people can just make new users, right? So are they going to permanently shut people out by IP banning them? That's even more resources, and they lose people from their site. So I think that is a very big question, and I think it's hard to give a good answer. But yeah, in a perfect world, of course, I would like to see it straighten up a little bit. I think that like just the best thing you could do as a streamer is just go forth and set a good example, right? I remember in the beginning of Twitch, it wasn't really like it is now. It was the communities and stuff like that was a lot more nice. A lot more nice. But it is what it is.
I didn't mean to ask you. It's not like you work for Twitch or anything. I'm asking you, hey, how could you? It's just good to see an insight from a streamer on that side. So, just another Twitch question
Well,
here.
I was going to interject real quick. Just
Sure.
The thing is like groups like us really like to gravitate towards the really positive streamers, but there also is a subsection of streamers that we won't name names, but like there are people they just allow that stuff in their chat, and it does attract an audience. So like it's kind of weird who lets kind of who join their chats, right, and how they let them participate with the stream.
It's a weird culture because there's like, I don't know, this subculture of edgy kids. That's what, I don't know, I call them, or where people, they don't like when they say racist shit or they say things that are highly offensive. It's not because they have those values. It's basically just to be a shit. And it's become very, very like, it's actually become a thing. So yeah, there is an audience, and I'm sad that is a thing, but it actually is a thing. I used to be highly offended by it and like, ooh, what is wrong with this person? But it's it's just there are so many people on that website, so you're gonna get like you're going to get a taste of everything.
Yeah.
So talking about on Twitch side, I'm gonna switch it over to the game. How big of a problem do you see stream sniping, where people are seeing your stream and then trying to queue against you, or do you see do you have an answer to or a solution to this? Do you find it as a problem, not a problem?
Yeah, I have a solution. I have the best solution for me, but sadly for me, I care so much, and I am really competitive. Even though I don't compete like on ladder, my competitive drive is just out of control, right? So I do have the solution. The solution is just ignore it. You know, it happens. It's life. You got to deal with it. But man, as a streamer, who's played the game so much, you know when people are sniping you. At least like 90% of the time, you know. And then it's that like, oh, this guy's cheating. I want to tell everyone he's cheating. And it's like, I shouldn't do it because, you know, Twitch, they're going to say he could have done this could have happened. And it's just like, as a streamer, stream sniping obviously ruins your content. It makes your content worse, I would say, because it makes the game unfair. You don't really get as high as maybe you could go. But the answer to it is you got to ignore it. You just got to let it go.
I'm glad you gave that answer because I immediately I was thinking you were gonna say just stop streaming. I was like, no, don't say that.
No.
Offline
like,
mode.
When I really go for high ranked, I obviously do some maneuvering, and it's also it's a fine balance. So what I do is I cancel queue. I queue up, and then I wait a bit, and then I cancel again, right? Because people will try to line up their queue times to queue up against you with a favorable deck. And at the highest legend ranks, the queue times are fairly long that it's pretty easy to do this. Where was I going with this? And then a lot of people ask me, well, Asmo, why don't you just, black out your screen while you're queuing, or why don't you just hide your hand? And it's because of viewership. I care more about viewership. If I blank out my screen for X amount of seconds, people will get confused, and then you just see suddenly 600 people gone. So if you cancel queue, they understand what you're doing. The game is in front of them. You keep your audience, but other than that, if you're gonna snipe me, it's just gonna have to. I just have to come to terms with it. But as a broadcaster, it is obviously really annoying.
Have you felt like the offline mode has helped a little bit with that, or do you think it's still just super easy because of the stream?
No, offline mode has helped a lot. It has actually helped a lot. It's only like the super toxic people who remain the people who are in your stream, and then they're trying to line it up. There's not that many of those people. So queuing in offline mode has really helped the amount of weird matches you get. I think there's a downside to it though. Not seeing your opponent's name is it kind of takes away a little bit of the story. It's cool to say Cosplay Grill versus Show, oh, they're facing off. Now it's just your opponent versus your opponent. So it definitely has its downside, but when it comes to fair gameplay, it has helped quite a bit, and I'm pretty sure that any streamer would say the same, that it's a noticeable difference.
Yeah, I remember I actually queued up into a Miracle Rogue your opponent, and then I checked the add friend afterward, and it was actually you. So I was like, this is gotta be Asmo, because I don't think anybody else is playing Miracle Rogue right now, and obviously just got destroyed.
Doesn't sound like me.
Well, you played played a turn 1 8/8 Van Cleef against me.
Well, that's usually pretty good.
And then I also think another game you got a Spike Ridge Steed off of a Swashbuckler, which wrecked me pretty good. But hopefully I can beat you one of these days.
I have an interesting thought that I haven't about decks when it comes to Rogue, because Miracle Rogue isn't really playable now, and Tempo Rogue seems kind of meh. But I think that if you could make a Tempo Rogue now with no kill set running double sap. That sounds like the ripe deck right now, because sap is just bonkers right now, you know, and Tempo Rogue is the right archetype. So I'll be interested to see that on ladder.
Maybe similar to Just Saying was playing like the pirate rogue that had double sap and double eviscerate.
Okay, well then he's already thought about something like that. So that would be along the lines I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, sap
Well,
seems really
I don't want to
solid.
keep you much longer. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I think
you got to start your stream soon.
Yeah, we'll give you one more question, then we'll let you plug your stuff.
The most important question of the night: what is the origin of Shanene?
Shanene, that's well, I just say random shit all the time, so it's like that one stuck, you know, you see the reaction and then you're like, oh, damn, they like that. I'm just gonna keep going with that. Like now it's evolved. Now I think it's Shamalama Ding Dong or Ompa Lompa or, you know, dab, which is like everyone thinks dab is the cringiest thing, like myself included, but oh my god, it just brings so much happiness to see a grown-ass man dab. Like, I don't know why it has that. I saw someone else dab and I was like, this is the cringiest thing, but I'm happy inside right now. So I was like, okay, you know, just whatever works for you. But I've always tried to be myself, so if I think of something weird, I'm just gonna go with it.
Man.
Awesome. So we'll let you go, but first we want to give you a chance to shout out all your social media, where people can find you, et cetera, et cetera. So tell us where people can find you.
So you can find me at Cole_Asmodai on Twitter. Mainly here is where I post deck lists and my ladder finishes, or not ladder finish, but like when I get high ladder placements, that's where I post it. And on Twitch, I'm on Twitch TV/Asmodai TV. And
you have a pretty new YouTube channel, right?
I do have a YouTube channel, which kind of is on the flow, but I don't have a I don't have a good URL. It's like just a lot of numbers. So
yeah,
we
linked it. We linked it for you.
Link
we posted it.
Professional, you guys are taking care of me. I like it.
Yeah.
We just really appreciate you taking the time. We know it's like, I know you're about to start your stream, but you start your stream at like almost 2:30 in the morning there.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. Like I looked at your podcast and it's professional stuff. You guys are good. I'm happy to be here. So thank you guys.
Well, great.
I'm glad it's mutual.
Yeah.
Mutual love and respect.
Yeah. Feels good, man.
Okay. Well, you know, have a good rest of your show, and I better get to my stuff.
All right, great. Thanks again.
Thanks,
all right,
Admo.
see ya.
All right, bye. All right.
Oh man,
so cool.
I'm so glad he was awesome. We were kind of talking about you know, having guests on and who we wanted to have as a guest on the show. And literally the first person that came to my mind was like, oh man, it would be so great if Asmodai could be on the show, but I know he's in Norway, so like I don't know how we would even get the times to line up. And I sent him a message, and it was a couple weeks ago, but we ended up getting it to work out, and you know, it was great, really great having him on.
Yeah, glad we're recording a little bit earlier than normal, and obviously you guys know why. So those that are joining us live, but hope everyone liked having him on. That was good. We'll probably edit some of it in post show, but
Rip Hat.
Yeah, sorry, Hat. So shall we continue?
It'll be fine.
We're gonna give a little bit of a less content because of the interview that we had with our guests, but you know, we still have stuff to talk about. Glad to get to that. Hat, you want to say anything before we start talking about ladder?
I be looting all the loots, you be booting down the loot chute.
I want to say that because I've been waiting for an opportunity to use that soundbite, and I'm not gonna have one, so I just played it right now because I can. That is 100% the reason why I played it. It is not relevant to anything, but it's really funny, and I wanted to play it. So
Hat has more stuff.
Yeah.
You'll hear it,
Also,
I'm sure.
how great is Asmo? Oh my goodness. That was like, I feel like we just did an entire show and a half's worth of content. We have a show left.
Yeah.
We do.
Oh, the pressure. All right, Hat, you want to talk about your week this past week?
Yes, Razakis Priest is really good. Really, really good. It's this time of year, as I've discussed before, and I don't want to beat it to death, is busy. But I hit Legend a few days ago. I think it was Christmas Eve. Yeah, it was Christmas Eve. I hit Legend with Raza Priest because I was playing Q Block because Q Block is fun and interesting, and I was winning more games than I was losing, but not by a ton. And I saw the great Rod Johnston, formerly known as Iona Kata, hit Legend with Raza Priest, and I'm like, you know what? If it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. And I played it, and I think I went 12-2 to Legend. Like, it was just so incredibly powerful against everything except Divine Favor for 5 twice in a game. So it's like my rule was if my Paladin opponent Divine Favors for less than 10 extra cards, I still probably beat them. But if they Divine Favor and draw 10 extra cards or more, they will probably beat me. Because I beat a Divine Favor for 7, but I lost to 2 Divine Favors that were each for 5. So
Yeah.
that's where my line is. And it's kind of silly if you think about the aggro deck only gets to beat me if they draw 10 or more extra cards a game. But that's how it felt. And every other game that wasn't against aggro Pally with Divine Favor just felt so easy. Just so easy. So, small sample size, and I played a lot of Raza Priest over the past few months, which kind of sickens me inside, but here we are. It's the best deck right now, and you know what?
Not my fault.
It's not my fault. So, you're going to hear that bumper a lot more, by the way. But, yeah, so I hit Legend. I have played, I think, 1 game since hitting Legend because Christmas and the week at the movies is very, very busy. But it's definitely something I would recommend learning because you are going to play with it and you're going to play against it a lot.
All right. I'm going to have Bot go next on his ladder this week.
Okay. Well, so speaking of Raza Priest, I actually the day after we recorded last week, I had a coaching session that I got from Luker on Raza Priest based on Cream Puff's recommendation, and boy is he really good. In case that wasn't already obvious. So yeah, highly recommended. We got up to rank 120-ish, and I been playing a little bit more on Asia, and that has not been going quite so good. I dipped down into the 4-digit numbers for a while, mainly because I was very fortunate to get a bunch of, or not a bunch, but a good amount of packs from friends and family, which I really appreciate. And so I built a second deck on Asia, which was Tempo Rogue, and I kind of played that into some pretty low legend, but I was able to kind of pull myself back up out of that. I'm sitting right around the 400 range. Gonna have some more time to play coming up. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I should have applied some of my packs to Europe. Since I have all legendaries, I feel like I'm not getting a use of the packs that I've been getting. Oh well. But yeah, since the holidays, I haven't been playing much, but I did rank up to rank, was it 10? I was at rank 14. I ranked up quite a bit with a standard Pirate Warrior deck because I had a play 50 Warrior cards quest, which has been lasting forever with this Pirate Warrior deck that I've been playing. It's the one with the Spellstone and the what's the 6-mana 4/4 that gets you that summons a copy of the spell that you draw.
The Spiteful Summoner?
Yes, that one. So it's kind of like it's a different type of warrior deck, or Pirate Warrior deck, but I've been having fun playing it, I guess. But I should get to Razaka's Priest since, yeah. I should play Priest because I don't have that at Golden yet. So that is what I'm doing.
Yeah,
Right,
you know that Raza Priest is good right now. If Hat just spent like 3 months playing only Priest, and he already went back to it because I know how much he was kind of not enjoying playing Priest.
Well, okay,
for a while.
it's I was not enjoying playing Big Priest, and I was sick of having to play Priest. Raza Priest I enjoy playing a lot. I think it's like the deck is crazy uninteractive, and I don't like that about it. The same reason why like Kibler is a noted freeze mage opponent, and like it used to be that Raza Priest was about you get Raza and then you grind your opponent down over a couple turns. Now it's about doing 28 to 32 damage in one turn and just drawing cards unless your opponent's trying to kill you, in which case you stop their stuff and then draw more cards. Because like, and it's worse than the freeze mage matchup because there's no navigation of ice blocks. In freeze mage, if you draw extra cards, you lose. In Raza, you just jam every card that says draw a card, and then you win if you draw more cards than your opponent 90% of the time. Unless you high roll Raz on 5 into Anduin on 8. So there's definitely play skill to be had about it, but the matchup is a lot more brute force than freeze mage, and it's really uninteractive when it's good. And I just don't like that about it. And all it's trying to do is get you to not do your game plan and then execute its own game plan without caring about what you're doing.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And Big Priest, I cannot stand that deck. It is slow, it is controlling, and then it feels like total BS when it wins, whether it's the high roll with Barnes or whether it's just doing what its game plan is. And the Diamond Spellstone is infuriating because you just clear their stuff so much, and then they're like, "How about I get it all back?"
Yeah. It sucks. Everyone that's trying to spectate for a win ends up watching me play against a Big Priest, and they get a turn 4 or turn 3 Barnes, and it's like, I'm sorry, this is not happening. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, and I mean, and the deck is skill intensive. I don't want to say it's not skill intensive. I don't want Wicked Good to tune into this podcast and unfriend me. Like, the deck is hard to play and is really, really good. I just can't stand playing it. And everyone has their deck they don't like. I think he told me once that Tempo Rogue was his deck, the same way Big Priest was my deck. And it's, it's Ebony and Ivory, except we're both Ivory. It's Ivory and Ivory, except we're opposites in terms of Rogue versus Priest. You get the idea. It's not a perfect metaphor, but it's the point here is that everyone has their likes and dislikes when it comes to the formats and the play styles and whatever you want to call it. I just can't stand Big Priest, and it's probably the best Priest deck and one of the best decks in the format right now. If you enjoy it, you should play it, but I can't stand it. I just can't do it.
All right. Let's get to we're almost an hour in. Let's get to the rest of the show. Good thing is we have kind of short news, short tournament. It's still decent. I'm not disqualifying it, but we kind of are expecting some around this season anyway. So we had a couple new pledges that either change or re-add, and you know who you are, so thank you. I'm not going to name any new ones because they were from people that have been with us before, but we know there have been changes recently. Let's jump into the news now.
And before we get into that, of course, as we've outlined, after we talk about the short news and tournaments, we're going to talk about Priest.
Yeah.
All right. News.
Okay, so we did get a confirmation from Blizzard. Specifically, who was it? It was Jesse Hill, one of the community manager, who said that we will be, in essence, just shorting here, we will be getting 3 free packs for the quest bug. Those that were having it show in later or not showing immediately or having to do weird things to try and get it to show. They understand and have been making some changes. I've noticed that it's been more readily available. I'm sure other people have as well, but they were just wanted to publicly acknowledge it and say that in January we will be receiving three free packs on Blizzard because of it. So you guys want to say anything about this? I'm glad they're acknowledging it at least. And we found out it was due to dungeon runs in their servers. So
yeah, it's kind of one of those good problems to have, I guess. Dungeon Run was literally so popular it broke the game, and we weren't able to get our quests on time. But I think 3 packs is probably more than the majority of people would have lost in quests. So seems like a decent fix, and it feels like our quests are kind of getting back to normal now, which is good.
I'm sure Hat is saving his comments for the next part here.
I am.
All right. So the next thing, we did get a little bit more elaboration on the pro teams and playoffs regarding HCT. So I'm gonna kick it over to Hat to talk about.
So, Asmo actually touched on this a little bit. There's a lot of changes to the HCT this season. We're not going to go over them again. We went over them a couple episodes ago. If you are competing in the HCT, you probably already know most of this, but there was some clarification this week. We want to make sure that we go over these clarifications. So there's actually a fixed Hearthstone competitive point cutoff. If you have this many points, you make it. If you have less than that many points, you probably don't. So they clarified. It's supposed to be 64 players that make it. And they want 64 players that earn 45 or more points. But it's their first time doing fixed point totals. So they made it very clear. If they have under 64 players, they fill the 64. They go down and they find the number of players that they need to have to make sure they get there. If it's over 64 players, if you're tied for 45 or you're tied for the 64th place person, you still go. So don't think I'm tied for the 64th person, I'm 65th by some tiny decimal point, I don't make it. That's not how it works. If you make the cutoff and you match the lowest ranking person that makes it, you also get to go. And in addition, the people that qualify through the challenger process also get to go. So they're making sure that it's very clear that the populations are ripe for adjustment for future seasons as need be. But if you make it, you get to go. Right? If you make that number. There's also some information about the team standings. Organization must be approved by Blizzard to participate in the pro team system. Legal business, blah, blah, blah. Active roster, 3 players. Players must be under exclusive contract. The team pro standings begin Season 2 on April 1st. It's not an April Fool's joke really happening. So there's some clarification here that doesn't apply to a lot of us, but we'll be talking about it on the show as it happens. And the pro team standings are... They just added some legal boilerplate to make sure everyone is aware of what's going on. Nothing crazy right now, but for the people that applies to, it's good that Blizzard is actively communicating.
You're muted, Kenny.
Yeah, so more than what we mentioned here, but we figure most of our listeners don't. It's not going to apply to them anyway. So yeah, we'll have it linked in the show notes too. All right, shall we go over some of the tournaments?
It's the grand tournament!
Hooray, tournaments! But there was only one major one this week, and we want to give a high-level recap of the Hearthstone Invitational. This is a tournament run by the Blizzard Esports Taiwan team, and had some of the biggest names in Hearthstone that were competing for a good amount of money. So, let's give you a list of how the results broke down and who was playing at the same time. The tournament finished Virtual 1. He's a player on Celestial, as is Kranich in second place. I tried to get their full roster, and boy, they have a lot of people in their roster, so I'm not going to break that down. But Virtual and Kranich, first and second. Pavel and Purple were tied for third and fourth. We've got Aaron, who's a Chinese player, along with Waifu, and then Firebat and Tom60229, who you may know. They were tied for fifth through eighth. In 9th through 16th, we've got Jason Joe, Kalento, Kuonet, Maligos TW, Pinping Ho, Roger, Tice, and Yulsik. Now, this tournament was a good showcase of high-level Hearthstone. The meta is still very clearly new, and it's interesting because there's not a cohesive strategy yet. If you want to watch any particular games, well, I'm not going to recommend to watch games that encapsulate the tournament. I'm going to recommend that you watch Pavel play his Jungle, Giants, Combo, Druid, because... Did you hear what I just said? Jungle, Giants, Combo, Druid. That's a deck that makes me want to go. Yeah.
I've played that on ladder. It's kind of fun.
It's actually a good deck, too, right? If you want to target Q Block or Control Warlock, and you want to target slow priest decks, you get to be just about as slow and have a guaranteed win condition and also gain a lot of armor while you do it. So gaining armor is great. And it's super fun to watch. Game 4 of Pavel's match versus Aaron gives a really good example of exactly how the deck is supposed to work. Gain armor, combo off, kill opponent while they fail to kill you. So I definitely recommend watching that. It's believe that was the quarters where Aaron played against Pavel. It's game number 4. Now, from a meta composition standpoint, like I said, this meta's unsolved. We don't know for sure beyond every single player will bring Priest. If you do not have Priest in your lineup, you are probably making a mistake. And if your opponent does not have Priest, you are very lucky and probably won't know what to ban. Now, with that being said, you're not banning Priest all the time, you're just planning on Priest. Beyond that, there's a lot of variety. Tempo Rogue, still very popular. Continues to be a top pick. You can plan around it. It's not guaranteed, but it's pretty close. Then after that, it really depends on your opponent's predilections. Are you going to see Paladin? That usually means a more aggressive build because we've only seen Aggro Divine Favor Paladin and Murloc Paladin. Murloc Paladin usually plays Call to Arms. Aggro Paladin definitely plays it, but sometimes Murloc Paladin will actually cut it in order to make Spiteful Summoner better, and that usually means they are only playing Dino Size. You might still play Call to Arms in your Spiteful Summoner decks because Call to Arms is so incredibly good. Bodicus will agree, I'm sure. But
It's okay.
yeah, okay.
It's just okay.
It's anyways. So there are popular choices. You're not necessarily likely to guarantee to face either one. And Warlock, it's all control Warlock. Almost always cube, but not always cube. You will occasionally get some N'Zoth control Warlocks, or you might get some Rin control Warlocks, which might also have N'Zoth. And those decks, all they do is Rin. That's all they do. All they do is Rin no matter what. So, Paladins, like we talked about, we've seen actually a good amount of Spiteful Summoners. It's kind of a mix. Kranich actually made the finals with 3 Spiteful Summoner decks. He had a Spiteful Summoner Hunter that included Call of the Wild as the only spell. He had a Spiteful Summoner Paladin, and he had a Spiteful Summoner Priest, as you may have seen. It's Dragon Priest that includes 2 Freed from Amber, 2 Mind Control, 2 Spiteful Summoner, and a Grand Archivist. So your Summoners are either guaranteed an 8 or a 10, and then your Grand Archivist either makes you a giant dude or steals their dude. So, pretty strong. He's also a known aggro enthusiast, so take that with a grain of salt. Now, we are still seeing some Druids creeping up in popularity. It's usually Jade. You can typically plan on Jade. Might be Jungle Giants, but you should expect Jade. Especially after Mr. Yagut hit Rank 1 Legend with it. Mage is still around. That's almost all Alaneth Secret Burn. We haven't really seen the meta for Big Mage to thrive yet in a tournament setting. Hunter. Spell Hunter is dead. Or at least in a tournament setting, you should not expect to see it. It is basically a worse version of either Secret Hunter or Aggro Hunter. And those are the 2 options you're going to see there. The versions we've seen are all the lowest curve possible aggro hunters and don't really play the secrets or the spellstone. They're just trying to finish the game as quickly as possible. Shaman and Warrior, don't expect to see them. They're not good. They're very targetable. It's always some kind of Evolved Shaman and some kind of Pirate Warrior because there's nothing else to play with them. LHS, you might get crazy and target with a control variant of either deck, but they are the worst class in Hearthstone right now, and that translates to tournament settings. In terms of bans, you're likely going to see Priest bans, but you can make reasonable choice. If you ban Paladin, that means that you are looking to beat the control decks, and you don't want to lose to the aggro deck. If you ban Rogue, that means you want to beat the best all-rounder. And banning Warlock, if you want to beat that inevitability with the Death Rattles, likely that means you are a more aggressive lineup, because Priest can lose to aggro. Warlock is actually much better against most aggro decks, just worse against the other control decks, unless you are able to navigate skillfully with that cube combo. But don't think that anything is concrete enough, because it's not. This is all still the second week of the meta, and this is the Invitational. It's going to be a little bit different than, like Asmo said, next season you'll see at the end of the latter season, you'll see a lot of people grinding for points in a lot more tournaments. We have the HS Esports Arena Challenge is going to be next weekend as well. We might see some more clarity, but we'll see. So,
and also the rat race is next weekend too.
And the rat race. Oh yeah, because it's the first.
Fun.
Yeah, I hear Top Deck King's Cream Puff might be in attendance. I'm making efforts to see. I'm sure I will show up at the arena. It's just whether I will be competing in the main event or not. I'm trying to figure some stuff out.
Yeah, Cream Puff said he'll be there for sure.
So exciting. Oh man, I hope that one of you wins. But if you want to win, don't play Rin Warlock. The deck is just too slow.
Well, I mean, you got to think it's all going to be about the metagame within the metagame, right? If everybody's jamming super aggro decks, maybe you want to be the Ren Warlock taking your 70% matchups, because if you remember, the person who was actually first to legend in the last rat race was Hunter Ace, and he was playing Rizaka's Priest. So, which is not necessarily the fastest deck. He just went with the deck he felt like he could have the highest win rate with. And as you kind of saw throughout that tournament, it felt like, you know, it wasn't necessarily the people trying to finish their games as fast as possible that were doing well. So it'll be very interesting to see how the weekend goes. But I'm looking forward to at least watching some of it, maybe participating in some of it. Should be fun.
Yeah,
All right.
I mean, I think there's something to be said for the extreme end of the time versus win rate trade off. Rin Warlock in particular, the deck is meant to play multiple 10 drops a game. You're guaranteeing long games unless you're losing. Right? Like Raza Priest, you can get the faster draws, and it's overall is a high win rate deck, and you win a lot of the control mirrors. Rin and Control Warlock in general, I think, is really, if you're not playing the cube version, you are expecting a long game every time you play. The win rate has to be really high to compensate for long games with questionable overall meta impact. It has to be the best deck in order to be worth it. So it's
Well, it's
possible.
only long games if they want to keep you in the game, right? Like in a situation like that where the aggro deck is, 1 to 2% to win, they might be conceding early, so maybe your games are not actually that long. But obviously, if you're looking to, I don't know that, Rin. I guess I see what you're saying now. You don't want to be playing Rin Control Warlock because if you find that control versus control matchup, it's going to go long. But if you're playing, I think if you're playing any of the cube / controlling warlock decks, you're expecting a lot of aggro, and those games might not go as long because the aggro deck might just be like, okay, I'm probably not winning this game. It's better to just concede and move on to the next one.
Yes, and the cube variant lets you win faster as well, even when you're up.
Sure.
And also Mountain Giants.
Mountain Giants
All right.
are good.
Well, just for the sake of time, we're gonna say go add your review to iTunes, Stitcher. We're not gonna go over because there were none. So let's jump into our explanations.
All right, well, now I know what you all are thinking. Oh, wow, how new and innovative you guys are talking about Raza Priest again. And, honestly, I wish I could tell you all that we have something new and exciting about the deck and that we found something that makes it better than ever, but we don't. The deck is just really good. I mean, I've been playing it quite a bit. Hat obviously just hit legend with it. I mean, if you're going to be playing ladder in the next few months, you're just going to see this deck, and you're going to need to know how to play it or play against it. So this week I was kind of thinking about different ways we could describe Raza Priest that I haven't really thought of before to give like a better understanding of the deck. Hat said multiple times, including on this podcast, that the deck is very similar to Freeze Mage, and he's right, it is very similar to Freeze Mage, but it's also slightly different. So normally I would go to like a Magic the Gathering reference and try to draw parallels to explain it better, but I might have found a better analogy for the deck, and so I wanted to see if this one kind of sticks. So in the game World of Warcraft, one of the main kind of attractions after you hit max level is the raiding system, and within that system there are raid bosses that you have to defeat. So I akin Freeze Mage to a raid boss fight that we would call a DPS check. So these bosses are basically in the raid and they check to make sure that you can do enough damage to the boss before they kind of enrage and kill your whole raid. So much like against Freeze Mage, where they're kind of checking to make sure you can deal 30 damage to them and pop their 2 ice blocks before they assemble all of their cards and get to 10 mana and kill you all in one turn. Raza Priest is kind of more similar to what I would call a skill check boss, and the skill check raid bosses are kind of like you just stay out of the fire, stay out of the circles on the grounds, don't get hit by the boss, don't get sometimes if you stood in front of them, you would get cleaved and you would take damage. And those fights are more about just putting out steady damage, not necessarily trying to burst them down. So when you're playing as and against Raza Priest, it feels a lot like maintaining pressure is the most important thing, both in terms of how many creatures you commit to the board and kind of the variety and sizes of the different minions. Since the inclusion of the card Psychic Scream, they now have 2 reliable board clears. Obviously, Shadow Visions helps with that a lot, and they also still pack the same pinpoint removal like Shadow Word Pain and Shadow Word Death. So it's important to plan out your method of attack. Threat diversity is key, but it's not as simple as it used to be where you just, I'd just play this 4 attack minion and that should be good. You really have to carefully plan out what creatures and how many you play out. So having a nice mix of 1 bigger minion and a couple medium-sized minion, I feel like I've talked about this before on the cast, but that's kind of what you want to shoot for, assuming your hand allows it. Sometimes your hand is such that you kind of just have to go all in and play all your creatures and hope they don't have a board clear, or you play a decent board against them, and then after they use the first board clear, you play out everything and hope they don't have the second one. And some things you can do as the Raza Priest player, keeping these things in mind, is why is your opponent playing the creatures that they're playing? What methodology are they using to play these cards out? And sometimes you have to have the discipline to be able to hold a board clear an extra turn, or try to figure out a way to make your opponent give you an extra turn so that you can board clear them, or maybe trick them into making them think you don't have the board clear. So like a card like Priest of the Feast is really good in situations like that, even if you don't have a way to gain life off of it. Sometimes just playing it out there induces your opponent into using a bunch of extra damage to kill it. It's kind of a kill on sight thing to make it, and then gives you the extra turn to get your board clear out, or maybe it makes them play weirdly around it, play into your board clear. I had my coaching last week with Luker, and there were a couple surprising things. I used to think that you always kept Raza and Anduin in your opening hand, but we got matched up against the same secret mage a couple times, and he was just like, yeah, you just throw away Raza, throw away Anduin. We don't have any early game minions, so it doesn't matter if you get to turn 5. You just need to throw those away and hope that you hit your early game creatures to so that you can survive until the late turns. And we ended up winning a couple of those games because we made those mulligan decisions that I wasn't necessarily aware that I was going to have to make. I don't know that I necessarily would have made those same decisions in that same spot without his coaching. And I know Hat has a couple of other things he'd like to say about Raza Priest, as he's had a good amount of experience over the past week.
Well, okay, I've had a good amount of experience over the past 3 months. The deck is, it's still the same. You're pulling from the same pool of about 40 cards, and you're playing 30 of them, except now you definitely play Psychic Scream. That is the card from the new set. Though I will say Holy Fire has gotten so much better when you know there will be 5/5s that you need to kill and gain life against. Corridor Creepers made Holy Fire a better card. The build that I hit Legend with was Meaties, and he plays 0 Binding Heal, 0 Greater Healing Potion, 1 Holy Fire. So you just gain that 5 life and kill a creeper at the same time. It also can go face. And, Raza Priest, it's harder to play than might be initially apparent, and harder to beat than might be initially apparent. It's all about kind of having your typical scenarios and then playing outside of them. I really like what Bot said about his coaching with Luker, that you have the rule, and then you learn when to break it, right? You have that rule of always keep Raza, always keep Anduin, except nope, put it back. And a lot of the deck is about how do you generate value out of your board clears. Do you need to wait and generate time and efficiency, but leave yourself open to pressure and burst damage? Do you need to inefficiently heal or inefficiently clear because your end game is so efficient at both? What do you do? And you used to also have to grind your opponent down before Mind Blast, Smite, and Velen became commonplace, but now you don't have to prioritize your endgame so much on grinding your opponent down over a couple turns. You're probably killing in one turn. If your opponent is at 24 life or below, you are almost certainly killing in one turn. And Velen, Mind Blast, Holy Smite is 28. But against aggro, you're using Holy Smite on turn 1. You're killing the Flame Imp. You're killing the South Sea Deckhand, maybe. Right? You're using it to kill something. So Velen is often 7 mana, 7/7, gain 4 life if you have the hero power at 0. It's often 9 mana, play Velen, play Spirit Lash, and gain a crap ton of life. It's
Love the life.
Oh yeah, that interaction, by the way, you quadruple the amount of life you would gain because you double the damage from the Spirit Lash, then you double it again for the lifesteal. So if you hit just Velen, then you gain 4 life because it deals 1 times 2, and then you double the 2 for 4 just to gain life. 2 minions is 8
That
life.
is correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
etc. etc. So you use Velen in that situation as just a big late game dude that also gains you a little extra life or deals a little extra damage or both. And the most important thing to learn if you want to beat Raza Priest is play with Raza Priest. And this is true of any deck, but the best way to beat it is to learn what beats it. That is by far the most valuable way to learn a deck's weaknesses is play it and learn how you lose. Because when you play against deck like Raza Priest, or if you're aggro against Control Warlock, it feels like you can never win in the games where you're losing. But then when you switch roles and you see how you can lose, you're like, okay, I get it. This is what I have to mulligan for. And in Raza's case, it does not deal well with constant pressure over time. Big Priest is a bad matchup because the removal that you have is not ever enough. Jade Druid is a bad matchup because the removal you have is not ever enough. And in those matchups against the Big Priest and Jade Druid, where they have tons of late game pressure, you have to be the aggressor. Quest Mage in particular, I think, is one of the worst possible matchups for Raza Priest because they have 2 ice blocks, and when they go off, it doesn't matter what your health is. You can be at 30, you can be at 40, you can be at 100, and you're dead.
Yeah.
And
any mage deck feels like a bad matchup, with the exception of maybe like the big spell mage that not a whole lot of people play, but even the secret mage feels really hard just because of the way that their secrets line up.
Well, and that deck is hard to beat because it's the constant momentum, right? It stops you from playing your first couple board clears. If you play a minion, you take 6 to the face now, and then they just play Alaneth, and it's like burn spell, burn spell, burn spell, burn spell. You can't really ever keep up with it. It's not a good matchup for Raza Priest. And there are a few things I've learned playing with and against Raza, more against it. First of all, don't ever Bone Marrow in 7 if they're going into 8 mana turn. Just don't do it. Don't do it. You will get Anduined, both your minions will die, then you will die. Wait till turn 9. Play something else. Just wait a minute. And after they Anduin, drop the Bone Marrow, and all of a sudden you have a lot of attack and a lot of butt that they can't kill. Play enough stuff to kill them faster than they'll kill you, and then when you get to the point that your board is good enough to win in 2 to 3 turns, and you're not going to die, stop playing stuff. Just stop. It's enough. If you have 3 to 4 minions, you should probably stop playing stuff. Unless you're a paladin and you want to dump your hand, play Divine Favor. And you want to generate resources in ways that you can't usually generate resources. Your hero power is really important. If you're a paladin, make 1/1s. If you're a warlock, commit 2 to 3 minions, and then life tap, just to make sure you have cards left over for after they clear, because they will clear. If you're a hunter, lean on Steady Shot to undo their hero power, and force them to choose, do I heal for 2, or do I take a 2 extra damage a turn? If you can weave in your hero power and gain resources that way, you're going to be much better situated. And cards like Corridor Creeper, it's excellent. You can play it as an early threat, but that's a refill card. You want to wait for the board clear. It's all about... There's so many reliable board clears that Raza has now. It's not, is it going to happen? It's how do I deal with it when it does? Right? And that's what you have to be thinking about all the time when you're playing against it. Now, if you have burst damage, hold on to it for as long as you can, because Raza is all about extracting as much value over time. It's all about, if I don't have to pull the trigger now, I don't want to. So make your opponent feel like they don't have to pull the trigger and then kill them from as high a life total as you possibly can. Conceal your burst as long as possible. If you were in an aggro deck and you see a Priest of the Feast, kill it. Kill it now. You will lose all the damage you put into the face if you leave the big Priest or the Priest of the Feast up. And it will trade into your minions and get healed, and they will gain more life than you can deal damage. You must kill it. Even if you sacrifice your board, if Priest of the Feast stays alive and you are in an aggro deck, they will out-heal you and you will be mad. You will be mad. I got mad.
Unless you can't kill it. I have had situations where I'm like, if they have a spell with this Priest of the Feast, or say if they have 2 spells with this Priest of the Feast, I'm probably not winning anyway. So sometimes I have had situations where I've ignored it and I think it's correct. But just like kind of knowing when to kill their creatures. I hate to interrupt you in the middle of your list, but like if you're going to have, for instance, when they play Kazakus and they're going to have a 4 damage clear to everything, or there's potential for a 4 damage clear to everything, then maybe you don't trade with the Kazakus, because if they have a 4 damage clear to everything, then it's going to kill the Kazakus as well. So, dealing damage to that is wasting damage that could have gone to their face. But maybe you do trade with it because you have a 5 toughness minion or a 6 toughness minion on the board, and by killing the Kazakus, you prevent them from trading with your higher toughness minion and them playing the 4 damage board clear and getting extra value from it. So kind of just extra things to keep in mind.
Yes. I agree.
Anyway, continue.
Well, like, here's the thing. There's no hard and fast rule you can say, do this every time, except I feel pretty confident that Bone Marrowing on 7 is almost always wrong if you're going into the 8 mana turn. But you have to adapt to the situation, because Raza Priest as a deck is powerful because of how good it is at adapting to situations. Right? And what we're giving you here are guidelines. But a guideline and each game will vary based on the situation. And we can talk about what usually wins. We can't talk about what always works, because there's no always.
Yeah. Also, trading with Raza going into their Anduin turn is generally not advisable as well, because obviously if Anduin's going to kill your stuff and going to kill the Raza, there's no reason to sink 5 damage into that, because you're going to need to go face with it anyway.
Yeah, well, and you're usually not going to want to trade with your opponent's minions unless they actively affect the board, because you think about their creature composition. Outside of Raza itself, everything in the deck is tiny, is a 3/3 or smaller. So if you're an aggro deck, unless killing a Curious Glimmerroot, for example, is going to increase your damage over multiple turns, you probably should just go face and make them trade. The Loot Hoarder, unless it's going to take out, like, if it's going to take out a Crackling Razormaw, you can bump it with a Dire Mole by all means. But most of the time, you want to push that incremental face damage and force them to trade. It's free damage. And otherwise, you don't get it.
Yep.
And a lot of playing against Razas think about their blowout turns, right? Because think about the worst loss you've ever had to Raza Priest. We all have one. It's all about when we play into their removal and do they have it? Assume they do, unless you can't play around it. So, the big swing turns that I see now in this format, turn 1 Potion of Madness. That's a big one. You want to play around Potion of Madness where you can. Turn 4 Mass Dispel. That's actually a big deal in this format. There's a lot of Mass Dispels going around, so be aware of them. If your opponent plays Kazakus on 4, be aware of deal 4 damage to all minions on 5. Turn 6 Dragonfire Potion. Turn 7 Psychic Scream. Turn 8 Anduin. See these cards coming and say, what do I do if they have this card? If you can't win if they have it, you can't win. But don't start the turn by saying, I can't win if they have it, and vomit your hand on the table. See if you can play around it somehow. You might be surprised. And it's all about adapting. I mean, all the cards we listed are board clears. But also, you might be the control deck. And if you're the control deck, you don't care as much about board clears except Psychic Scream if you're Q-Block. But you do care about Mass Dispel. If you're Big Priest, you care a lot about Potion of Madness if you have a Barnes in your hand. But also, you need to think about it. If I'm the control deck and I'm against a Raza Priest, do I have Armor Gain? If the answer is no, the longer the game goes, the more likely it is you are to die in one turn. So if you are Q block, you need to be the aggressor. If you are big spell mage, you can put up an ice block, but you need to figure out a way to close out the game because they get you to 2 and they pop your block a couple times. What do? What's your plan? The slower you go, usually it's better for the opponent. Now, if you have armor gain, lean on it early and lean on it often. As soon as you see a minion that costs less than 8, it's not Big Priest, go ahead and start gaining that armor. Gain it right away. The Druid hero power in particular, you'd be surprised how quickly you can get out of range. The combo, you should plan on maximum 32 damage, except in extreme situations. If you can be between 40 and 50 health, you're pretty safe. And it is entirely possible to run Raza Priest out of resources with appropriate threat generation and armor generation.
Yeah, so like that's like an alternate win condition for the quest druid deck sometimes is just playing the branching paths to gain 12 armor and using Malfurion to gain more armor.
That card is so good. I was thinking about that the other day. It's 4 mana, it's either Arcane Intellect, Savage Roar, or Greater Healing Potion for armor. And like
Yep.
Greater Healing Potion is good enough for 4. And then you're adding 2 cards on top of it, and you get the choice, and you can mix and match. Like it's branching paths is super good. There's a reason Yagut hit rank 1 legend with 2 of them in the deck. I think we're going to see that card for a long time.
Yeah, I'm surprised how good it is. But Kenny, what do you think of Raza Priest in Wild? Have you been seeing it a lot?
So generally, Raza Priest is, since it's good in standard, it's generally pretty good in Wild too. So I would say it's really good. A lot of things have changed with the deck for Wild, adding in the Wild cards. Let me just go over a few here. So if you're switching over from standard and going to Wild and playing, or thinking about doing something, keep these in mind, either playing against it or adding it to your deck. So I'm kind of starting on the top end here. So N'Zoth, obviously, with Obsidian Statue and some other things like Sylvanas that are out. You're going to see Reno Jackson's Light Bomb is a nice board clear for Priest. It's a step up from the Dragonfire Potion. They also have Dragonfire Potion, but it's just another board clear that they're adding. Value out of Sledge Belcher. They also have Belen's Chosen. I see Nexus Champion Sirad, which is like the 5 mana 4/5 Inspire. Add a random spell to your hand. It goes well with your hero or your Death Knight hero, Shadow Reaper Anduin. Let's see what else. There's Bran in there sometimes. There's have a good 1-drop, which is the Zombie Chow. A lot of people forget about. Those are just general guidelines, I guess, for things to think about. Mind Control is another one. See a lot of. You probably see there too. But yeah, just keeping it. The big point is obviously everything they just mentioned, but you're wanting to keep in mind these other cards that can be added. Wild's a little bit more wild, if I can say that. Also, what was the? There's the new. What was it? An epic? Or there's one where you can trade their damage for your damage. I've seen Vol'jin. Rarely, but Vol'jin's been added too, if they haven't.
Have you seen any of like the dragon variety, the kind of new dragonish version?
Yes, generally the dragon's the one that they play in standard.
Okay, but
pretty
not too much in Wild.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The one that's playing in standard is also playing in Wild. They're not adding anything different. I was trying to pick out one that I saw. Let's see. If we're talking about Raza Dragon, I've seen kind of like the same build around, but they're adding Azure Drake.
That's a pretty good inclusion.
Yeah, Azure Drake. What was the other ones I was thinking of?
I miss Azure Drake. Really do. Sludge Belcher? Do you play that card?
Yeah, they play Sludge Belcher. Obviously the Dragonfire Potion. I'm trying to think. What's the other? I have seen some that are not Raza, so they're more dragon based, but not too much that are Raza dragon, I should say.
Have you seen like Light of the Naru? Is that around?
Yes, of course. Yep. Some of those, it, there's a lot more you can play around with, and there's a lot that you can see. So it's harder to tell what you're up against or what you're playing or what you'd like to play than in standard. So it's hard for me to kind of add my input here with all the things that you do see. It's more rare because there's more options, obviously, in wild. But yeah, of course, if you're talking about just Dragon Priest, there's Primordial Drake, there's Twilight Guardian, Black Wing Corruptor.
Oh man,
you get
old school dragon stuff.
yeah. So
And imagine like Dustbreaker's got to be way better when you can play with Twilight Guardian, right?
yeah,
Because then you
of
just
course.
like taunt up the board with the 4-mana 3/6
seen-
and then wipe
I've
it.
seen the OTK where they add the spell because there's a lot of the dragons have big butts, like you like to say. So you got to keep that in mind. So you have that along with Felon's Chosen and all the things that just add more. But you get that Cosmo I'm not taking it there. But yeah, that's my input.
Cool.
All
Well,
right.
I think
So
that's
that-
our explanations for this show. And
Yeah. Any? I think that would be it for the show altogether. If we want to go, yeah, let's go into the outro here then.
hey, Kenny.
How long can this go on?
Well, let me make it shorter. You can write into us if you send in an email to coinconcede@gmail.com. We did want to thank Stefan L for using his cover for our intro and outro. His channel can be seen on our show notes. It's linked there. We have our blog post, obviously, at coinconcede.com, where you can find the show notes. Twitter's at coinconcede. CoinConcede is the Facebook. You just facebook.com/coinconcede. Discord.coinconcede.com. We're still getting people adding every day. A lot of discussion there. Not lately because it's been the holidays, but it'll pick up again soon. I'm absolutely sure of it. Discord.coinconcede.com. And our shop.coinconcede.com is still active. And thank you again for our producers, Reganis Prime, Caleb, CV, and Fluffy.
It's so fluffy!
All right. Shout outs. I'm going to thank Asmodai for coming on and for my wife for understanding we're starting earlier today and taking care of 3 children. And let's go for Bot here. Who's your shout out this week?
I also want to do a huge shout out to Asmodai for, waking up early, extra early so he could come on the show. But also, if you want to hear more of me, Felon's Chosen had me guest on their show just this last week. And especially if you want to hear me talk a lot more about Priest, we went a little bit more generalized, all of the different Priest decks that are currently on ladder right now, which is a lot of them. But I had a great time on the show. You should be downloading them. They have an awesome show over there. So shout out to them for having me on.
Great. And Hat?
Oh man. All right. So I have multiple shout outs. First of all, Asmodai because Shanene. Second of all, Twitter and the universe in general. There is actually 3 awesome things going on Twitter this week. First of all, there's a lot of Hearthstone positivity going on. It was started by Storm Rage 23, I think, and then signal boosted by Spivey, where it was all about list your top 5 Hearthstone personalities or people in your community that really make you think of positivity in Hearthstone. Buy them 2 packs. There were a lot of packs circulating this week, a lot of positivity. Some people, including myself, discussed communities that were positive. Coin Concede came up a lot, so Storm Rage and Spivey as well. Thank you very much for signal boosting that. There was also Hearthstone 2017, which I think was a Top Deck Kings thing. I think that was started by Cream Puff and Tell, and that was a really cool hashtag going around, just talking about your favorite decks and your favorite cards and your accomplishments and your disappointments. So it was really cool seeing people's interactions with that. And then the United Hearthstone League, which I am a part of. I think I shouted this out last week, but if I didn't, I should have, and I'm shouting out again this week. There's a lot of podcasters that are getting together, representing their communities, and playing in Ferris Biscuit's Hearthstone League. That's the he's the guy that runs the 1600 Dust Opens, and now he's running a kind of cross podcast, cross community group, and there's a lot of great people involved. I'm one of the players, and follow them in United Hearthstone League on Twitter and see who is next in the reveal. We've already had Andrew Brown is on there, and Chris Plummer from 1600 Dust is on there, and I'm on there. So, and more reveals are coming. Yay.
All right. So let me give our where you can find us one more time. I'm going to start with Asmodai. So if you missed it earlier and you didn't get a chance to see him, you can go to Asmodai TV, which is his Twitch, and his Twitter's COL_Asmodai, ASMODAI. We've linked his YouTube channel in the show notes. I'll add it again to our Twitch. And where can people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at BoticusHS, or follow me on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Boticus.
All right. And of course, you can always follow Cora, Casting Hearthstone, on her Twitter at Songbird_HS. And she's on Twitch sometimes here with Songbird Cora. Hat, where can people find you?
You can find me at my local movie theater for the next 5 days or so, but you can also find me on twitter.com/ridiculoushat, twitch.tv/ridiculoushat, and Discord. Wherever Hearthstone is discussed, I am probably there. Go ahead and tag me and I will get at you wherever it is. Twitch, been a rough week for streaming, but I am fully intending on being back tomorrow night at my usual stream time of midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific. So I will hopefully see you there.
Great. And you can follow me on Twitter at KCCO_gamer, or just at me in Discord or Twitter. I'll respond. I'm always there. That does it for our show. I'm glad we had this is an awesome show. I enjoyed it. But we'll see. Keep calm and chive on. If you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
Take cold comfort in your victory.
You win. I can rest now. You win. For now. Now, your victory proves nothing.
The day is yours.
I choose death.
You have triumphed. This time.